So when you're sampling from different places, you must be aware of the fact that you can't just take anyone's music, pass it off as your own, and then re-release it, because you would be doing something which is actually against the law in many countries around the world, which is infringing copyright law. It is a good idea for you to have a basic understanding of copyright law to know what you can and what you can't do when it comes to sampling. So copyright law protects the works of a composer. So for instance, if you were to record a song, you would have the copyright of that song, and you have the permission and the right to sell that song, or to make copies of that song, or to make any work that incorporates that song. If somebody else were to come along and use your work without your permission, they would have to pay you for the privilege of using that. And if they did it without your permission, you can essentially take them to court and you can ask them for even more money. Any existing works that have been released by someone are protected by copyright, unless they are royalty free, which for instance Apple loops are. Unfortunately, you cannot just take anyone's song, sample it, not ask for permission, and then release it to the public. There have been cases in history that you will see whereby an artist has tried to do that and they have been hit with a lawsuit after that release. The bottom line here is you have to be very, very cautious when it comes to sampling other people's music. Of course, for samples that you've created yourself, or for samples that are royalty free, you have no problem. What you want to understand is that there are three different parts of a song or a record that can be owned by different people in the process, okay? And you don't want to be infringing the copyright of any of these. So there is the performance, there is the recording, and there is the music itself. So the performance obviously will be owned by the performers. If somebody played a guitar on a record and you chose to sample that, you would have to speak to, yes, the artist, but you would also have to gain permission from the performer. The recording itself is usually owned by a record company. It's what we call the master recording, and you would have to ask for permission to use that master recording. And the music or the composition is the song. So a song itself has copyright law attached to it. And so, as you can see, you would have to gain permission from a few different people if you wanted to sample and release the music. When you're wanting to release something commercially and that contains a sample of someone else's song, you want to be aware that you might be infringing copyright law. So be very careful. But remember, if you're using it just to have some fun with, that's not that bad. If you are ever in a situation where you are using a sample and that sample is going to be taken and used on a commercial record and might infringe copyright law, you must do what we call getting the sample cleared. And getting the sample cleared just simply means going and speaking to all of the copyright holders and paying them anything that you might owe them for use of taking their work. Of course, one of the very best things that can happen to you is that you can use a royalty-free sample and have a huge international smash. Load this into your sampler and work with it. This is what happened with Rihanna's song Umbrella. Go to the Apple Loops browser, type in Vintage Funk Kit 03, and you'll hear the drums for that song. They didn't pay anything for using that sample or clearing that sample. And it was an international hit worldwide. So, know that you have a treasure trove of royalty-free samples available to you. So now that we know all that and we've got all of the legalities out of the way, let's take a dive into Logic and see how we can use the sampler available to us in there.